Hey now, what is up everybody? My name is Mike Brown, aka ReviewKingMB, and I am here to re-review because I've already reviewed these movies a while ago, but it was on my old camera and the quality wasn't the greatest. So now I want to update them. I want to re-review some of my favorite movies of one of my favorite characters of all time. I am talking about Spider-Man. Spider-Man is a film that came out in 2002. It was directed by Sam Raimi, and the plot is it's the origin of one Peter Parker, Spider-Man, played by Tobey Maguire. He's a high school kid, which I know some people laugh at. Tobey Maguire playing a high school kid who's probably in his really 20s at this point, but you see him, he's in high school, he's in love with his next door neighbor, Mary Jane Watson. He one day gets bit by a radioactive spider, gains these superpowers, and due to some very wise words from his Uncle Ben, with great power comes great responsibility, he becomes the superhero of New York, Spider-Man. And he goes up against this dastardly villain in the city known as the Green Goblin. Now, what I think of the original, the first Spider-Man movie is I love this movie. I do. I remember when it first came out, I was very young at the time, maybe 13, 14 years old, but it was still something where I felt so attached to the Spider-Man character growing up from comic books or that 90s animated series that helped shaped my childhood and my still the knowledge I have on most of these superhero characters and villains and plot lines and whatnot. I get most of those from those cartoon shows, those animated shows. And so seeing this in the theater, seeing Spider-Man himself swinging through the city, the technology, which I know some people will say, oh, these movies are dated now, they don't hold up as well as the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And it's like, well, of course, maybe not to that level. But I still sit back and watch these movies, and I watch what Spider-Man does in these films, and I go, wow, this is still pretty great. This still, for me, holds up, and it's insane to see just how ambitious Sam Raimi was. You can tell that he does have love and respect for the character, especially the classic versions of the character. I like Tobey Maguire. I do. I like him as Peter Parker. I like him as Spider-Man, especially as Peter Parker, because he pulls off that shy, nerdy kid, especially at the beginning with the glasses, and he's trying to talk to Mary Jane, but he's really nervous about her. Even his best friend Harry Osborn's trying to get him to talk to her, and he can't really do it. And the awkward exchange he has with her with the camera, and I think Tobey pulls off those awkward scenes very well. I love seeing his transformation into after getting bit, and just him with the physique and trying to use it to be cool now, trying to impress Mary Jane, wanting to get the car. You see him go off and have that, I guess, professional wrestling match, with Bonesaw. I'm talking about Macho Man Randy Savage. That scene is great. It's so memorable when you think about this movie. So many memorable scenes in this movie. And I talked about Uncle Ben. And I know at this point some people roll their eyes when you bring up Uncle Ben and Peter Parker, only because we've seen it so many times. Maybe not as many times as Batman and his dead parents, but you know where the story goes, but I just don't think they've done it better than this first movie. This actor who plays Uncle Ben, you feel that warmth, you feel that love and compassion, that care. So that when they do have the mini blowout, when they do have a little disagreement, and then he's sitting there waiting for him and gets shot because of the guy who was robbing the place, and Parker lets him go to stick it to the owner. It's one of those situations where you not only feel it, but you feel Peter's regret. You feel his anger, his rage when he goes after the guy and then realizes his mistake, and how heavy that is on him, and how he does take that knowledge, he does take that advice and puts it towards wanting to be a superhero, wanting to be a good person. It's a reason why everybody still quotes that line, why it is so memorable. It's all because of how much you felt what goes on in this movie. Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane. Let's talk about Kirsten Dunst, because I think still to this day people crap on Kirsten Dunst as Mary Jane Watson. I, for one, think she's a great actress. I do. I think she's gotten even better as she's getting older. I think seeing her as Mary Jane, sure, she had to dye her hair red. In fact, she might even be wearing a red wig here. I'm not sure. But I like how her character is written. I think writing-wise, this is the most Mary Jane she is in this one movie. Certain phrases that she uses, certain, like, the way that she talks, I'm like, okay, I feel like I'm listening to Mary Jane here. Even the stuff with her abusive father, and Peter can clearly see it next door, and she just wants to escape and go off with her boyfriend who might be an asshole, but she's gonna go hang out with him. It's better than being at home or hang out with her friend. Harry Osborn, played by James Franco. This is one of the first movies where I remember James Franco, and I mean, he had done a few things before that. Hell, he even auditioned to be Spider-Man himself, Peter Parker, but I like the fact that he's Harry Osborn. I like the moments that he has where clearly Peter is his best friend. And he does have moments of like, okay, I buy that. But he has other moments of being a little underhanding, like when he starts to date Mary Jane kind of behind Peter's back, or when his father is praising Peter so much in front of him and he just has this look on his face where he feels defeated and he feels ashamed and he feels a little resentment towards Peter. So their friendship is very interesting, especially if you know where it's going to go. I think this movie too handled the Harry Osborn character throughout the course of multiple movies better than other movies. William Dafoe as Norman Osborn. He is the main villain. Norman Osborn, Harry's father, who also eventually becomes the Green Goblin. And I love his story too. His story of just, he's trying, he's desperate almost to get his company, to keep his company afloat and try to keep it going. He's going crazy, develops a split personality. The scene with William Dafoe talks to himself in the mirror, and one version is completely psychotic and evil, and the other version is scared and doesn't know what to think. Only certain actors can pull that off, and William Dafoe is definitely one of those actors. And his face, his expressions, the way how he can contort his mouth and eyes to look crazy. My only negative is that I didn't have as much of an issue when I first saw the movie. I was just glad to see these characters on screen. But now, in retrospect, I do wish Goblin did look more traditional. I don't maybe love as much the outfit and the helmet and the fact that you can only see Dafoe's eyes, and you can even tell through the eyes that he is giving an over-the-top performance, or a performance that's needed for a character like this, but you don't get to see the face, you don't get to see it, and I just think his face would have been perfect. The scenes of him flying around on the glider, that too are CGI effects, stunt effects that still hold up and still look great. Mary Jane's boyfriend at the beginning is Flash Thompson, played by Joe Manganiello, who now has become a name, now has become a guy that you recognize, but at the time, he was a baby face. He was a guy who you probably didn't think much of, and when you go back and watch, you go, holy crap, there's a lot more soon-to-be stars in the making. Rosemary Harris plays Aunt May. J.K. Simmons as J. Jonah Jameson. Man, oh man. At the time, I might not have known this man's name. At the time, I might not have appreciated how many other movies he has done and how great of an actor he is in so many diverse things. But I still believe he is so good as J. Jonah Jameson. He's only in it for a couple scenes, but he just oozes that charisma, oozes that fast-talking ability, and whatever you see on the page, whatever you remember from the cartoon, this guy embodies it. He's the perfect representation of J. Jonah Jameson, and that's why I think the reboots, the other movies, are so afraid to recast this character, because you can't outdo that. You can't do a better job than Mr. Simmons. And the Danny Elfman score, I think it's great. Obviously, when we think of Danny Elfman, you might think of the Batman theme first, but this score, this theme, the Spider-Man theme here is great, especially the end shot of him swinging through New York and that operatic theme playing and him on the American flag. It's great. It's so great. I love Spider-Man 1, Let me know in the comments below what you think of the original Spider-Man. Do you like it? Do you love it as much as I do? Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Later!